For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Yeah! Yeah! All right, welcome back to 30-odd minutes. We're so glad you're here. We landed the mothership right here in San Francisco. There it is behind me. It's a dark and stormy night. Perfect for ghost stories, and we've got a great guest to talk about it tonight. But first, we want to tell you, if you're watching the show live at 30oddminutes.com, jump in the chat room because the lovely and talented and oh so beautiful Andrew Lake and Sarah is there, ready to take your questions, pass them up to our guests. Get involved. We love you guys. We totally love you. How are you guys tonight?
Awesome.
Hey, awesome.
No complaints.
Really?
Good to be
Yeah.
here.
Should
know-
we not be?
It's no, I'm glad you're here. You know, it's 29 minutes till beer.
Okay. How can life be any
So
better?
count down with us, folks. Count down at home.
Count down the canisters.
Right on, right on. Hey, this past week was awesome. I went to Mansfield, Ohio. Went to the Ohio State Reformatory, an incredible event. Check me out. This is going to be the cover of my new album, straight out of Ohio State Reformatory. There it is.
What up?
Yeah, what up, what up? So, amazing place. You may have seen the movie, oh gosh, what was the movie?
Shawshank?
Shawshank Redemption. Thank you very much for bailing me out, fellow oddballs. Shawshank Redemption was filmed there. It's an incredible place. 300 of my closest friends, here they are. I asked them all to pose for a picture, and they got together, and there they are. Thank you to the iPhone. Awesome people. We had such a great time. So many cool folks. This prison is crazy haunted. We were going through, and people were having experiences all over the place. Some locations just lend themselves to these stories, and, got great feedback. Speaking of feedback, we ask for your emails at info@30oddminutes.com, and you email us, and you post on our Twitter, and you send us Facebook messages, and we love you. Sarah, tell us what they said.
All right, so we've got a really good wall post on Facebook. It says, and it's from Archie Roberts. He says, "Hey folks, great stuff out there. Thanks so much for bringing it out. Takes me back to the deep curiosity and earnest interest of my formative years, when the world really was an animated, magical place full of mystery and wonder and grandeur." So thanks for opening that up.
Oh,
Anyhow,
that's nice.
I know, and then he goes on. "I was wondering about the possibility of a future show on the widespread, though little discussed phenomena of Leo envy. Investigating the unexplained reasons why so many people secretly wish they were born sometime between late July and late August. I thought you good citizens might have some insight into this curious phenomenon. Being an early August baby, I of course have little invested in the answers, whatever they turn out to be." You totally set this guy up, didn't you?
I feel his pain, fellow Leo.
Please, it's hard to be a Leo.
It's impossible to be a
Someone's
Leo.
got to do it.
Are you guys envious of us? Be honest.
No.
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 A little?
No.
No. Should we be?
No.
Really? I think you guys are all for show.
Yeah.
It's all fluff.
That's it.
Yeah.
Denial. Denial.
Courage.
An ugly thing, denial. Oh well. Hey, we should talk about ghosts.
That's right.
I love ghosts. It's my favorite topic. And some cities just lend themselves to ghost stories. These great old cities with lots of history. And tonight we're going all the way to San Francisco. We're already here. We're going to just tell you about it. And we've got an awesome guest to do it. So listen about it. Tonight's guest is one of America's leading parapsychologists. He is totally awesome, and we love him dearly. You've seen him on all kinds of shows. He's the author of numerous books, including ESP, Hauntings and Poltergeists, Mind Over Matter, and his latest book, The Ghost Detective's Guide to Haunted San Francisco, co-written with psychic Annette Martin. You've seen him on Larry King, Joan Rivers, Hard Copy, The View, David Letterman, 30-odd minutes. And tonight, he's all yours again, live from the San Francisco Bay Area. Please put your hands together for Professor Paranormal Loyd Auerbach.
Yeah.
Hey! Loyd, how are you? Oh, the volume. We love it.
Was that the Vulcan? Was that the Vulcan like
yeah,
live long
good.
and prosper thing going on? 'Cause
How are you again?
You got to work on that, dude. Oh, there we go.
How you been, Loyd?
Been all right. Been all right.
Good.
Thanks.
Good. Good to have you back. Thank you so much for coming back. Congratulations on the new book. We love it.
Thank you.
Very cool stuff. And we understand that you might have some chocolate for us. Hand it over.
Yes.
Well, I got some right here. But unfortunately, getting it through the monitor might be a little bit tough, but I'll show you. This is one of my ghost drops. I can open it up here.
Nice.
And you can see that all of my ghost drops have ghosts on them.
Oh, just
Cool.
that is. Oh, how good does that look, Loyd? We love you. You not only are you a see
He's
that's
eating in
just
front of
rubbing
us,
it in
man.
now.
That's just cruel.
That's just rubbing it.
It's
in.
good.
That's kind of rude.
Got milk?
We brought chocolate too. Sarah has some. It's on-
I do. It's the ever so classy Dove variety of chocolate. No ghosts.
it was all we could get on short notice. We couldn't get the.
We take what we can
Okay.
get. We
Couldn't
slum
get
it
the
around
stuff.
here. Yeah.
All right, but hey, San Francisco, Loyd, chocolatier, parapsychologist extraordinaire, author, and here to talk to us about the San Francisco haunts. So tell me, how did you first hook up with Annette Martin, who unfortunately couldn't be with you tonight, but we will talk about her, and she's not here to defend herself. So, by all
That's
means,
true. That's true.
say
Well,
whatever. you want.
I met Annette first probably, I think, around 1994 when we had a fairly active organization here in the Bay Area called the California Society for Psychical Study. And Annette spoke at one of our meetings. And she was also good friends with another colleague of mine, David Richardson, who was working on the Office of Paranormal Investigations. Started working with Annette at a variety of different investigations, took her to the Moss Beach Distillery and a few other places. And we've been working together since that time.
So, academic parapsychologist, do you jive with psychics okay? I mean, were you always okay with working with psychics?
Well, interestingly enough, my first job in the field of parapsychology was working at the American Society for Psychical Research, where we were doing research on out-of-body experiences with a psychic by the name of Alex Tanis. And Alex was the main subject in those experiments and also had an incredibly good record with NYPD, Boston PD, the FBI. You hear that all the time from psychics about claims like that. Alex never had to claim it because we had those officers showing up at the ASPR every week to talk to him.
Right. Okay. Well, fair enough. And so you think she's the real thing? You validated her?
I mean, she has actually been involved in laboratory research, including research on her psychic, just a medical diagnostic talent. She's been doing that for many years. So she's actually been a subject in experiments, has done very, very well in various experiments. We have worked with her in field experiments and other types of experiments, and she is the real deal. And unlike a lot of the folks you see on TV, Annette is your typical well-adjusted psychic.
That is good. We have met some psychics that are crazy, but we love them anyway. God bless them.
Yeah.
So you two team up. You're in Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area. So many great haunts around that region, of course. What makes this city so rich in hauntings?
Well, there are great stories, I think. If you take a place like Boston
Sure.
or New York, you're going to have a lot more. San Francisco sort of had its history wiped clean in 1906 because of the earthquake. There are older stories. There are a few older buildings there and a few other places that are probably haunted for much longer. But it just, because I think of the atmosphere, it lends itself to telling of ghost stories in the city. You've got the fog rolling in, the hills and everything else, and Victorian-type houses and place.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's got the look. It's got that old world look. And of course, when I think of San Francisco, when I think of ghosts, one name comes up big time: Alcatraz, the Rock.
Alcatraz, yeah.
I mean, an incredible place. There it is, right off our.
It's just sitting out in the bay. You can be almost anywhere around the bay and see it, so it's not like it's going to go away from your field of vision. You have to see it.
And the history here is incredible because it's not just a prison. I mean, this goes back to the Spanish-American War. It goes back to the Civil War.
Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, how did this island become so significant?
Well, I mean, it was a fort. It was used in the Civil War. It was used since that time throughout many different conflicts. And I think that its isolation, it's not easy to get to except by boat, obviously, or helicopter, of course,
Sure.
these days. But it was not the kind of place you could swim to and from. And so as a fort, as a place of defensive posture, it was really a good location
Sure.
for a lot of reasons. And
Sure.
that made it also very good as a prison, too.
Right. I mean, if you escape, where are you going to go?
Yeah, you could try swimming. The guys that supposedly escaped from Alcatraz, it's unknown whether they actually escaped or just went into the water and just died.
Yeah. Cold water, long swim. And so how do you investigate a place like Alcatraz? It's called the Rock. I don't know if you hold any weight with the stone tape theory, the idea that the environment can record psychic information. A place like the Rock would probably be quite the recorder, wouldn't it?
Well, It is because it has a lot of high emotion. I think any place that has significant emotion, and one of the things we know from research in the laboratory, as well as researching people's experiences in the world around us, is that people have experiences with high emotion, whether it's positive or negative emotion. And places like Alcatraz, there are very few ghosts on Alcatraz Island. I mean, we're talking about very few conscious entities. Almost everything that people pick up, anything people experience, that's that residual imprinted information that's actually in the rock, in the location, in the building itself.
Right.
And that's the emotional stuff. There's more emotional stuff coming through than you'll get any specific information, even seeing any particular ghost. And if you think about it, with all the reasons why ghosts might stick around, the last place a prisoner would want to stick around after death would be the prison that held him.
Yeah, right.
So it does make quite good sense that most of the witness explanations and most of the witness testimony over the years have been about emotional experiences, sometimes seeing things out of the corner of their eye, but not direct contact with ghosts like we have in other places.
Right. And so how do you investigate a place like this? We've got a picture of Annette inside. You two are going into this location. How do you tackle such a big location? There she is, your co-author, Annette Martin.
I think the first thing to consider is what you're investigating. And, of course, when one goes on an investigation, it's not to look for ghosts. You're not really hunting ghosts where there weren't any or hunting these things.
Right.
You're actually basing it off of witness testimony. And there's been a lot of witness testimony over the decades of people who've had experiences in Alcatraz prison and on Alcatraz Island. So we were actually checking to see whether, first of all, to talk to some of the witnesses. We did talk to some people who had experiences, and then taking in someone like Annette in to see if she picks up some of the same locations that people also had experiences, which is really kind of key. You're really looking at her as a detection device,
right?
And to see what she can pick up. She's one you can talk to, of course.
And did she pick something up? Did she feel something?
She mostly picked up, in most parts of the building, she picked up actually the residual imprints about some people, specific people sometimes. But really it was that kind of residue. And I've been there with other psychics as well, and it seems to be more of the haunting or place memory or stone tape type of thing than anything else you'll get there.
Right, fair enough. And so, but did you have experiences when you were inside?
I did. And I've been there a couple times, and I actually picked up things and very emotional feelings in certain places. Over the years, I've learned to pay attention to my own feelings, and it's not just working with psychics, actually from working with other parapsychologists and understanding that it wouldn't hurt to kind of open up. It doesn't necessarily become part of the data, because for me it's very subjective. But I actually picked up things when I was separated from Annette that Annette later verified in terms of like emotional pressure or a particular emotion or even kind of the sense of a person being there or having been there.
Now, what's the difference between opening up or appreciating the history, knowing, okay, prisoners were here, it was a tough life, this is not a place anyone wanted to be? I mean, I think about like when I was in the battlefields at Gettysburg. You walk around there, and I know what took place there. I know how many died right where I'm standing. Is that opening up, or is that just an appreciation of human history?
I think it's definitely an appreciation. I think that what happens is you get a sense of history. You get a kind of an emotional gut reaction to that history. Yeah. And that, honestly, it feels different than certainly what I've felt in places like Alcatraz. And it's only in certain spots in Alcatraz, too. Most of Alcatraz didn't feel like anything to me at all. And some of the places where they reported like riots and other things that had happened, I didn't feel anything at all.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, quite a place, quite a story. I know lots of people who are interested in this subject want to go out there and check it out. We do have a question for you. We had this one emailed in a little bit earlier. The lovely and talented Andrew is going to pass it on.
Yeah, Chris Landroche was asking about the Queen Anne. Has he ever investigated it, and does he believe it's haunted?
The Queen Anne Hotel. What
actually,
a segue.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Funny.
Let's put up that picture.
Good job, Chris. There it is.
Yeah. There's the Queen Anne. How about that? That is the lead story, actually, in our book. This book is a little different. We took a different approach. But the Queen Anne is a really great place. My friend Jim Fassbinder runs his San Francisco Ghost Tour. It starts at that point. The Queen Anne has a room in particular. It used to be a girls' school many years ago.
Right.
A little girl died there. Mary West, who was the headmistress, a teacher there, died there as well. Those are the two ghosts that people have been seeing over the years. And walking through with Annette was really interesting because I actually knew a little bit about the history and a little bit about people's experiences and wanted to see if Annette could pick them up. And she did indeed pick them up, which was quite interesting. She also started seeing and having a conversation with Lily, the little girl's ghost, and with Mary, who was apparently tagging along with us around the hotel, the other ghost. And we put some of the transcripts of those conversations, my conversations with Annette about this, and Annette's one-sided conversation, of course, with the ghosts, both ghosts at that point.
And
so we had a really interesting experience walking around.
And that's what is pretty interesting about the book. It's a cool approach because it is kind of like reading about a real-time paranormal investigation. So you've got Annette's psychic impressions. Loyd's, he's got his EMF, his tri-field EMF meter in one hand. He's going through doing the investigation, and so you kind of get both sides of it in real time, which is really cool. I really appreciated that as a guy that's interested in this subject.
Well, and we wanted to give people a sense of our story and the story we were getting as we're going through there as well. And what was really interesting as we're walking around is we were approached by a couple of the guests who asked what we were doing and actually made a guess at what we were doing because they could see the tri-field meter, of course, in my hand.
Right.
And started telling us about their experiences the night before in the hotel. So these are kind of regular occurrences. People have experiences in this hotel quite often.
So for those who don't know, a tri-field meter, it's an EMF meter. It's kind of boxy, and it measures EMF in 3 directions.
Technically, it measures 3 different fields, and you can set it 3 different ways. And there are different kinds of tri-field meters, some of which you can walk around with fairly easily and some of which you can't. And the basic one, we really look for correlations or connections between not specific readings. I'm not looking for like a high reading of a particular type, which I see on people's websites all the time. Right. I'm looking for Annette talking to the ghost and things happening on the various equipment we have. I want to see that there is a correlation between anything anomalous in the environment that I might pick up with these devices and what Annette is picking up, or what another witness might be picking up for that matter.
Right, but here's my point: carrying a tri-field EMF meter through a very nice bed and breakfast, probably kind of a conversation starter or stopper, I imagine. Yes? No?
I think probably a starter, considering the fact that the ghost tour starts in this particular hotel almost every single night. Most of the guests there know about it.
Right. Okay. But that's the funny thing is that it's become. Do you ever feel like you're part of the entertainment when people are like, "Ooh, a ghost investigator, dance for me, monkey"? No.
Sometimes, certainly when I go to some of these events that I've been to, I feel like that.
Yeah. Well, we've all been there, but I like to dance. So no, that's cool.
I like to do magic tricks. So what can I say?
I know one of his many talents. He'll blow your mind with his card tricks. One day I'll figure one out, I promise. But yeah, very cool.
Jeff on the dance floor is magic, though.
I am magic on the dance floor. That's true. Thank you for noticing, Andrew. I didn't know what I had to do to get your attention. But I'm glad. So, okay, the ghost tours do start here. People do know about it. These places get a reputation, and I wonder at what point does the reputation affect the witness? Like, I'm staying at the Queen Anne because I've heard it's haunted. Am I more likely to have an experience?
Well, that's an interesting thing. In fact, it's one of the things we did with the Moss Beach Distillery when we set up the special effects, the recreation effects back in 1998. I wanted to know, actually, that was part of the whole process. So I wanted to know if people, knowing the story, would immediately assume that these things were real or would actually question what they were seeing as special effects. And for the most part, people knew that they were not real or not ghostly effects that were created by the ghost.
Well, let's talk about the Moss Beach Distillery. I know it's one of your favorite haunts of all time. You've been looking into it again and again for a long, long time. When did you first start investigating?
20 years.
How long?
20 years.
20 years, my goodness. And what first drew you to this place?
Well, actually, strangely enough, it was a television show. I was doing some programs for Japanese television with a Japanese medium, and they were looking for some locations in the Bay Area for us to investigate with her. And I was looking at a variety of places. I'd already taken her to one location called the Bantha Inn outside of San Francisco. And they wanted something closer and something on the ocean. And I had heard about this place. I actually had been to the restaurant without knowing that it was known to be haunted. And this turned out to be a really good place for us to go to, both visually and also for Mrs. Guibo to connect with the ghost. We had a really interesting experience, including some physical phenomena that actually happened for the cameras. The ghost was actually very cooperative with us that first night, opening a door 6 times for us.
Wow, and caught on camera.
Caught on camera, yeah. Doesn't look like much. The door just kind of slowly swings open on its own. But Mrs. Guibo, the Japanese psychic, was able to describe the ghost on camera walking over to the door. Of course, in Japanese, which didn't help the rest of us. But
right.
I actually, after the first time it happened, not trusting the TV crew, I actually stuck one of my people outside just to make sure that there wasn't anything happening from the TV perspective.
At what point does the Moss Beach Distillery, and this is going to be important, and we're going to get to this more in a second, at what point does the Moss Beach Distillery say, okay, we have a haunted reputation, people are starting to know about it, and they set up props to recreate some of the phenomena.
Right.
What are some of the props they set up?
Well, first you should know, there was a lot of media. I actually helped them do a lot of media, and that was part of the exchange for me doing a lot of investigation, doing work over the years with them, including Unsolved Mysteries in the early 90s and a lot of other shows. And they had to tear the place apart in 1997. They had to literally strip it down to its skeleton and rebuild it a few inches up the hill and anchor it in, because over the years, thanks to coastal erosion and the earthquakes, it had slipped, and it needed to be retrofitted, you might say, more or less.
Wow.
So a couple things happened in that retrofit. First of all, there were a lot of guys who were working on the retrofit and the rebuild who had incredible experiences, and we interviewed them for a TV show called Strange Universe, in fact. After it was rebuilt, several things were changed because they had to put in an elevator for the disabled. They actually moved the ladies' room, which was a major site of sightings in the past, but not since it had been rebuilt. And what we decided to do, partly because the owner was wondering how I could get the ghost to do more stuff. He would have been very happy if the ghost was doing everything instead of having to pay for all the effects.
Right.
But we suggested actually these recreation effects, partly because I was interested to see how the story would affect people's perceptions, but also because I had been on a ghost tour of the Queen Mary a few years before, and they had special effects on their ghost tour, even though they weren't fessing up to them.
Really?
So John was the owner. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I got the idea from.
Oh, because I knew Queen Mary did the special effects. I've known that for years. I didn't know they weren't owning up to it in the beginning.
Not on the tour. They may have done that since that time, but you asked people directly, and they were saying that they were not effects.
Wow.
And I actually knew the guy who built the effects. So
I see.
To be told to my face there were no effects on that tour was kind of interesting in itself, and you just let it go because it was fun. It was a fun tour.
Sure. Yeah. No. The ghosts just appear every hour on the hour for the tour.
Right.
But finally we have a perfect haunt.
So one of the effects was there had been a face seen multiple times. Oh, actually, a woman seen in the mirror in the ladies' room, again in the old location. So we decided to build an effect like that. There were women who were hearing ghostly laughter, women's laughter in and around the ladies' room. We put something in for that. That was triggered by the door opening a certain number of times. We had 4 Tiffany lamps above the bar shifting. Now, over the years, many witnesses, including myself and my team, had seen the end lamps out of the 7, 2 end lamps, one on either end, moving around. So we decided to set up the rigging for the central lamps, which had never been seen moving. So that if people were at the bar and didn't know there were special effects and said, I saw the lamps moving, I could say which one, and we'd assume it was the special effects unless it was the end lamps that were moving.
Okay. And so, like you said, this is not the only place to have ever done this. But then something happened back in 2008 that caused a little bit of a stir. A television show called Ghost Hunters from the Sci-Fi Channel went in to investigate, and I believe the show concluded that they were trying to trick us, correct? That was what the show...
That was the implication, that's correct.
Right, gotcha,
Yeah.
Okay. And this caused quite a stir because, I mean, there's an article by you on the Moss Beach Distillery website that kind of defends, like, hey, this has been around forever. Everybody knows about it. The producers knew about it. What happened?
Well, apparently, Jason and Grant didn't know about it. That's apparent. Even though they've told me they didn't know, I still have my doubts. But for me, anyone who goes in, whether it's a TV show or not, to a location and doesn't do basic understanding or basic investigation, just a little bit of research to find out what people have experienced by doing, especially these days, by doing a simple web search.
Sure.
If you don't do that, you're not really being an investigator. I mean, they claim it's because they didn't want to be biased, and yet their book talks about going in and doing that kind of thing first anyway. But if you don't want to be biased, then you don't talk to any employees. In this case, they talked to one employee. He was the only one who was willing to appear on camera, who was a new guy, a chef, who didn't know anything about what had been going on other than what he read in the pamphlet. He hadn't even really been fully briefed. So
Right.
He told them some stories, and that's where they went to investigate. He didn't tell them anything about the effects, because apparently it didn't even occur to him at the time. And Jason Grant claimed not to know about the effects. And yet, if you did a simple Google search, even back then, out of the first 10 stories that showed up, top 8 were actually talking about the effects.
I see.
So it's kind of that was very silly. On top of that, there was a lot of drama. I mean, there were the laughter. First of all, the effects were all turned off except the one in the ladies' room, because that's triggered only by opening the ladies' room door a certain number of times. I think it was 9 times. So there wouldn't have even been any reason to turn that off. And as it happens, they heard the laughter, which is very clearly from a speaker above the door, and only from a speaker above the door. In the meantime, they show on the show they're showing some very big drama of Grant going up into the ceiling and finding other speakers in the ceiling and making a big deal about these being part of the special effects, when in fact they were the PA system for the restaurant.
Oh.
And, almost every restaurant today has a PA system with the types in music.
Sure, sure.
So it had nothing to do with the effects. There's a tiny speaker that had to do with that. And by the way, the effects are no longer work. Somebody actually, one of their fans really ripped off the face in the mirror, and some of the other effects have been since broken as well. So that stuff's not even happening at this point.
Here's what I get.
The same fans, by the way, who accuse me of helping cover it up are the same fans who think that they actually drove to every single location.
Well, here's the thing. You seem to have taken it personally. I mean, this.
I did take it personally, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, why?
And let me.
So
the reason I took it personally was actually the reaction that I got.
Okay.
I basically in my initial article, which I actually wrote a blog while the show was actually on. So I was doing it while I was writing it, and I was kind of explaining where the effects came from. They were very clearly not secret.
Right.
They had been on a couple of History Channel shows, in fact, one of which still runs. Actually, if you go to YouTube and run a search on Moss Beach Hoax, you'll see the segment that ran years before and has run multiple times since then that shows the effects and has me talking about the effects. But it's not a secret.
Right.
So for fans to get up in arms and for this to be portrayed as a purposeful hoax to make them waste their time, which is what not only was portrayed on the show, but also what the fans came across with, was something I took very personally because I was involved. And I was being called a liar also.
Oh, okay. And yeah, that hurts. I mean, 20 years of your life, you've been investigating one place. I understand. I mean, we all have our favorite haunts.
It also calls to question. I mean, they're saying this is a hoax, but there are hundreds and hundreds of witnesses going back to the 1930s. Are they all lying?
Right.
So it was something very personal, and that's one of the reasons why it's in the book.
Right. And so this is the thing about these locations is that they take on a life of their own. I mean, there's the real history, the legend, the eyewitnesses, and all of it combines to be what it is today. Loyd, we do have a couple quick questions for you. Sarah, in the chat room. I know, gosh, we haven't been able to get over
want to get to it? Yeah.
Let's do it. Jump in.
Okay, we have one from Jen Brown. Loyd, have you ever had another living apparition case besides the Marin City case in 1990?
Wow, that's specific. Besides the Marin case, yeah.
Actually, if you go to my website, mindreader.com, there's an article about the Marin living apparition case. But I've had occasional other cases where people had out-of-body experiences and were actually seen as ghosts. And this is actually something that is in the literature of parapsychology and psychical research going back to the 1800s. And it's a really interesting experience.
Is that different than a doppelganger?
A doppelganger, well, it may be the same thing. A doppelganger is a double.
Right.
So it takes on, and that has a whole different connotation to it. People have experiences sometimes are seen as apparitions, either when they're in crisis or sometimes where they're sleeping and they have out-of-body experiences. So they're apparitions of living people in that sense.
And how interesting is that ghosts of living people, there's so much we don't know about how our own psychology, our own consciousness, and that's what's so cool about the field of parapsychology is that.
Well, and very sadly, even there's a publication of an article by Daryl Bem, a professor from Cornell University, about some recent research that's published in a mainstream psychology journal now, and it's got an enormous outcry from mainstream science of how dare they even publish this. And all I can say to that is, these are supposedly scientists claiming no bias, and yet from the get-go they're saying, I will not believe this even if it is, if the research is good. They're showing their bias, and they're also showing that they are not scientific in the true sense of the word, because people have these experiences and they're not willing to look at them or even support anyone else looking at them.
Right, and that's what I love. It's such a part of the great debate that is the paranormal, that includes so many facets of everything. Loyd, we're right up against the end. I do appreciate you coming back on to talk about the new book, Haunts of San Francisco. What a cool thing. So you've got legends, ghost stories, you've got psychic research, and you've got parapsychology all in one great location, San Francisco. Very cool. Congratulations on the book. I hope it does really well for you. And thanks so much.
Jeff.
I mean, God, I wish we had more time, but that's how it goes, right? Totally how it goes. Loyd, thank you again. Folks, until next time, please do stay odd for all the oddballs. See you next time. Yeah.